Oh. End of the year. Hello everybody. I am happy to present my best books of 2023. Plot twist, one of them's actually a book published in 2023. That, if you know anything about me, is the real Christmas miracle, because she not on trend. I have, how many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I have 7. This is a book channel, not a math channel. Don't hold it against me. Any hoozle, I have quite a selection as I was creating this list of what I absolutely loved and adored this year. And it ended up just being quite a variety. So I hope there's something in it for all of you. I got nonfiction, I got fiction, I got fantasy, memoir, just dabbled all around. And these are the ones that I couldn't forget. These are the 7 that are cream of the crop. Let's get into it. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Hello. Hi. I bought this randomly on vacation. I read it and now I'm a new person. I loved it so freaking much. So this was my second Emily Henry book. I first read Beach Read last year, I think. And I really, really liked that. I felt like it was a book made for me. And I think it was in my top 10 last year. But this is my new favorite. You have a girl named Nora. She is the stereotypical city girl that normally gets dumped in those like Hallmark movies where a guy goes to a small town and finds who he is and that there's more to life than work and the big city. And so she's been like dumped 3 or 4 times now in that kind of stereotypical scenario, which is already just a fun play on the genre, I think. And it's one of those things where I like romances and I can like contemporary romance, but I am very picky. This has great character arcs. I love the fact that there are certain genres, especially romance, where there are certain placeholders or milestones that are very common, but she does a great job of not doing the most obvious in-your-face reason for why a character is being secretive or what they're withholding, what their backstory is. It's still in line with the character, but it's not like the very first thing you think of. And it really melds well with the other characters and what they're dealing with. Interspersed with the romance, interspersed with like, the emotional beats of these characters like growing and bonding with each other. You also have great humor, like snarky dialogue about Bigfoot erotica, and just I really highly recommend this book. I've been gushing about it to all my friends. It just really it's so good, and like it feels so healing, because yes, it is like, you know, like a lot of romance, it's a fulfilling genre. You go in for a certain thing and you just love those moments, but then it's the heartfelt nature of it and that mixture of heightened, almost fantastical romance and intimacy, but leveled out with enough groundedness that you can still take something away with it for yourself. So get it. It's so good. I need a moment to recover. My next book is Sourdough by Robin Sloan. This will always have a dear place in my heart because it was one of my funk breakers of the year. There's always just times randomly, or sometimes not randomly, but this case randomly, where I'm just like in a grumpy mood and nothing suits my fancy. There's nothing I want to read. There's nothing I want to watch. I'm just bleh. And I picked this up, breezed through it. I think I read it in 2 sittings. I just was so immersed with the characters and with the story. Robin does such a good job with pulling you in. Like, it's still like modern day world of Earth, but it still feels very fantastical and new and exciting, and the pace is super great. There is plot, there are obstacles, but it's still a very cozy read, which is an interesting, it's not an easy balance to maintain. But I really loved how he kind of blends science with magical realism. So you have this woman who is a burnt out software engineer, and she's like working crazy hours at this startup and has resorted to these like meal replacement gels and has no work-life balance. Then she discovers first these 2 brothers who have kind of their own DIY startup restaurant situation and falls in love with her food. Then they have to leave, but they gift her their like majestic sourdough starter that's from their like home country. It's been like cultivated over the years, and she starts getting into the hobby of making sourdough. And there's something unique about this sourdough starter. I don't want to spoil it, but again, it flirts with that kind of fantasy element, but doesn't go headlong into fantasy. It kind of flirts with that line in a really cool, fun way. And I love it because it doesn't follow any big tropes. Like I think that's part of the reason why I'm so riveted, because I don't know where it's going, but I still feel held by the way it's written, that I'm gonna like where it goes and I can trust the author to take me on this journey. So good. Highly recommend. I'm still thinking about it, and it got me like making sourdough. I was like so excited to make my own bread after reading this. How cool is that a book can influence you that much? Next, another funk breaker of mine, The Psychopath Test by Jon Ronson. So this is a journey through the madness industry. It is a nonfiction, like personalized journalism style. So you have the author, Jon Ronson, who is an anxious dude, but hilarious. He kind of gets pulled into this weird, like, real life situation mystery sort of thing where all these people randomly, like in high level academia, are receiving these mystery packages, and they think there must be a hidden message in the manuscript that they've been sent, and it just takes him down this like rabbit hole into human psychology. And he ends up bumping into certain situations and people that leads him to go further into mental health asylums and what is a psychopath and the nebulous nature of like humanity and the inadequacy of any like measurement symptom of like a person's sanity. It's just so good and fascinating. And again, like, because the information is coordinated around his own personal journey and exploration in this topic, it flows so well. It has great pacing. It feels very much with the intentionality and pacing of almost like a fiction book. And within that, you have all these interesting like offshoots and branches of this topic into these particular characters that he finds and these experts and these people, but it never feels random. But because it's such a unique blend of his personal perspective and the happenstance of finding these people in this lineup of, you know, he meets so-and-so first, and that influences when he goes and talks to the second person, you get this really unique concept for a nonfiction book. And it's something where you're fascinated. You don't know where it's going to go because he doesn't really know where it's going to go. And at the same time, it flows under that general topic umbrella, if that makes sense. You gotta read for yourself. It's so thin, people. Just go. It's, yes. Then we have 8 Rules of Love by Jay Shetty. How to Find It, Keep It, and Let It Go. This is a 2023 read. I read something that came out this year. I'm like, hip and happening. And I didn't think I would like it. I loved it. I loved it. It was so balanced and well-rounded. It's with the lens of looking at relationships and self-help before, during, and after, so to speak. But also it's just like how to be a good person and how to better yourself whether you are dating someone or not. I loved that he was very concise. He was clear. He spent enough time where it was needed, but it wasn't fluff. It wasn't like empty, mindless pep talk. It was a good blend of tips, experiments you could do, studies that are cited so you can look into more. He's got meditation ideas, affirmations, ways to start conversations with the person you're dating or your partner, ways to categorize kind of what they're saying to you and be like, oh, you know, if you take away the more triggering elements of this might be what they're actually looking for. This is the root, the deep-seated issue kind of and helping to improve yourself and your partner and your relationship. And I think it's so well-rounded because it's not black and white, gendered, oversimplified, you know, soundbite nonsense, which I think there are some really great books in this space, but there is so much noise. So highly recommend it. It's not the sexiest one on the list. I know, like, oh, you know, kind of can feel like a chore, like, ugh, I gotta read to become a better person and like help my relationship. But I don't know, I think you did a really good job at it. And wouldn't you want to read this and prevent some of the blow-ups or bad situations before they ever occur? Josiah. Next, we have So Many Olympic Excursions by Annalise Chen. This was a random thing I picked up at a book fair. I'm gonna take a sip because I can. I always, like, I don't know how people do this and like drink their beverage. Like, maybe I'm just really bad at multitasking. Let me know down below. This is an experimental memoir meets sports essay. It's about a woman in grad school who is coping with the loss of a dear friend and someone she was in a relationship with who's committed suicide, while she's also struggling through her graduate thesis. It's such an interesting blend. That's the cool thing about memoirs, is that they can find these connective threads in topics you would have never thought went together, but they like overlap in these really interesting ways. So you have the perfectionism of academia, you have the relentless perseverance in the sports world, and you have that human struggle of like, when do I stop? When do I quit? When do I push through? When do I take it easy? It's one of those things where there's so many success stories that are in our cultural zeitgeist, that are in the narrative of media and the news and these hurrah motivational stories, but she really touches on these stories of people who get to their limit or past it and the dangerous results of that, of people who've collapsed, who've broken their bodies, that have torn apart their minds. And especially in relation to her college friend who committed suicide, thinking about that, it's like, what would it have been like if he had quit and got help? What would it be like if I quit and got help? What's the point? Will this even matter? Like, why are we doing the things that we do? And so it's just a really interesting exploration. Beautiful prose, and it's written very much in the style of autofiction, so you have very small chunks. There's not long paragraphs for the most part. I don't know if I can show you, but so readable, so like bite-sized little nuggets. I thought it was just very vulnerable and honest and like powerful, and that's a cool thing about sharing your experience in memoir, is that you never know how your words will touch differently, how your experience, how the intersections of these different things in your life create something completely different and new and yet still universal. If it sounds like that's up your alley, check it out. And then I have two books that I don't have with me as physical copies. One because I checked it out from the library, and the second one because I lent it to a friend. The next one is The Cabinet by Kim Eun-soo. And this is a really interesting Korean translated fantasy novel. But the cool element is it's not epic fantasy. So it's like a very like down to earth in an interesting way, almost like urban magical realism, where you have this bored office worker and he kind of ends up taking care of this cabinet full of cases of what's called symptomers, which are people that have had bizarre experiences or strange abilities that have kind of cropped up over time from the woodwork. No one really understands why. The people don't understand why. There's not really anything to do to help them. The file is just, you know, recording their experiences and keeping track of it. And so it's really interesting because like you'll have a guy who has like a tree growing out of his thumb, or this like person who ends up like hibernating at weird times and they'll just be asleep for like 5 years. It's just, I love that idea of making the fantasy element mundane. But also the cool thing is that it's written so powerfully that you have this random thing happening to this person, but it still says something and moves you in a way of like, what it's like to be a human and dealing with the things of our lives. And the one caveat I will say for this one is that in like the later third of the book, there is a really gory, like, torture scene that's, you know, not really reminiscent of the rest of the novel, so it took me really off guard. But if you were squeamish, that's not your jam, just want to let you know. But whoa, I've been thinking about this book on and off the rest of the year. Like, it is so well done, well written, and there's a flavor of humor in it that is reminiscent to me of Kurt Vonnegut. So it's not completely Vonnegut for you diehard fans, but like I said, there's a cool tone and voice and humor that kind of reminded me of that, and that was really fun because I do like Vonnegut. With that being said, like, just it's kind of cool too because you get these like episodic stories of the different files within this cabinet, but then it ends up coming back together into this overarching story. So cool, so well done, check it out. And last but not least, we have Lesser Known Monsters of the 21st Century by Kim Fu. So this is a short story collection that has a very interesting mix between sci-fi, fantasy, and then I think there's one or two that are contemporary. There's a lot of like female-centered stories, which I really love, and there's just such a consideration and beauty to that sort of storytelling, whether it's in a more domestic setting, whether it's coming of age versus like an adult story, that I just really love to see. There's that nuance there that not all books have. And it was really cool to see a lot of different angles to her work, and I really want to see what else she's written. I was hooked in by the first one. The first one is this like kind of experimental dialogue only conversation between an operator and this person that's in this almost like complete like VR experience. The person who is wanting the experience wants to see their dead parents, and the operator's like, we can't do that. And it's a like dialogue between the person being like, why not? And they're like, well, X, Y, and Z. Something so simple but like so stripped down to just dialogue could easily be boring, and it's so fascinating. It just like didn't feel like in your face, but it covered so many themes of grief and the future and science and human psychology and capitalism. And so there was a lot of cool themes covered. Yeah, it is really lovely when you can see a short story collection where you like every single story in the collection. Like, that's pretty impressive. It doesn't happen a whole lot. I got very lucky this year with having read some great short story collections, and this is one of my absolute favorites. This was compelling to read. I was flipping through. I got this done in 1 or 2 sittings. Kind of like most of the books on this list, actually. It was just, I flew through it. With that, we're at the end of this list. Let me know what books you read this year, which ones you loved. Did you read any of the same books as me? I would love to know in a comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye!